Michael Wilbon is the co-host of the popular show, Pardon the Interruption. And Mike joins us now on the program. Michael, how are you?
Dan, I'm good. How are you?
Well, you should be good. Capitals won, aren't you? Are you rooting for the Capitals to do something dramatic? Or are you a Blackhawks fan?
I know, Dan. Look around. You know me long enough. Chicago team.
Okay. All right.
I'm not one of those guys who just because he moved somewhere starts rooting for those teams. Even though it's been 38 years in DC. No, I am rooting for the Capitals because the Blackhawks aren't involved. I'm rooting for them. They did something dramatic last night. I was flying to get to Oakland, and I couldn't see the game. But I'm glad the Capitals won and even did, and maybe there'll be some drama in that series.
Do you respect Bryce Harper? Here he is playing with the Nationals. He's from Vegas, and he's all in on the Vegas Golden Knights.
That's all he should be on.
Right.
Again, I'm not a person who would adopting teams to me is the phoniest thing. I guess it wouldn't be phony if you've lived somewhere forever. Bryce Harper's lived in D.C. for what is this, his sixth season maybe? And he's not that old anyway. Bryce Harper's still like 24, 25. That's supposed to be what he does. You know, now, if the Vegas Golden Knights weren't involved and he was cheering for his adopted, fairly newly adopted team, fine.
Yeah.
He's from Vegas. That's his team. Good for him. And anybody in Washington who says anything about that or turns up some resentment needs to shut up.
D.C. is kind of underrated for heartache, aren't they? Misery?
You know, Dan, it has happened in the last 20 years, yeah. I mean, for a while there, now we're going way back, and I guess you got to be of a certain age like ours, when D.C. had some real winning going on, when the Redskins had won 3 Super Bowls, when Georgetown had won. It's been a while. There was no baseball, of course, and the Bullets had won. So they were, I mean, the 3 they had at the time had done pretty well, but it's been a while. I mean, and most of it is defined by the Redskins still, who haven't won since that third one, which is 1991. So it's been a while, yeah. And it doesn't take long to go from a city where winning is fairly expected until you start talking about who's choking and how many years it's been and what drought and how many cities have had X number of appearances since there's been a win. So, yeah, I guess it's sneaking up on people. If you're 30 years old, you haven't seen any winning in that city.
Michael's covering every game of the NBA Finals for SportsCenter while co-hosting Pardon the Interruption from the road. You can follow him on, I believe, his real social media platforms. You're at real Mike Wilbon, right?
I guess so. I don't have any burners.
Okay. All right. That's my next question.
Yeah, at real. That's
no,
right. That
no
is
longer.
Right. No burners.
Like 3 days ago, you might have had burners, but not anymore, right?
Yeah. No, you know what's really funny? And I do tweet. I am involved in Twitter. I'm newly involved in Instagram. Newly involved since like November 1st. I had to get a crash course on what that was, what that meant. I'm not knee deep at this age in social media at all. And so the notion that Brian Colangelo, who is, I don't know, not that much younger than me, 5 or 6 years younger, what is he, like 52, 53, something like that? The notion that, somebody in his 50s would be that deep, even professionally in social media, it was sort of a surprise to me.
I wonder if he can keep his job, though, Mike, even if it's not Brian, but it's somebody in his family. If there's a third party here, doesn't it feel like he's exchanged opinions, information with this person who would then go on social media to have his back?
It depends on how close we're talking, but no. I mean, I exchange opinions with a lot of people. Certainly my brother. If he then went out and tweeted it, I need to lose my job.
But you're running an organization, though, Michael, and so medical records. You got Joel Embiid, who's going to be upset. Free agents aren't going to trust you.
Yeah, that's the tough one to me. Even more than free agents not trusting him. And Dan, I wonder how much free agents trust when we're talking about people that are 2 generations younger than us. I don't know how. I want to hear how big a deal it is to them, not to their agents, to them.
Yeah.
And the medical information is the big one to me. I mean, you're breaking rules now, big ones, if not laws. So that's the one that would concern me, and that's the one that would be more fireable offense. Look, fireable offense now is whatever offends someone above you who has control of your career.
Or how social media reacts to a story, and then somebody above you reacts to it.
Exactly.
As far as the NBA Finals, we were just saying that if LeBron is this big of an underdog in the Cavs, can we truly be critical of LeBron no matter – I mean, aside from a subpar performance, but if he gets swept, can we be critical of him that he got swept if they're one of the biggest underdogs in team sports history?
No. And it's not even just sort of comparing it to team sports history. It's just looking at the two teams now. Looking at the two teams now and knowing where they, how they've gotten to this point and what happened, middle of their season on, I would not be critical of LeBron, who I think so far has had, one of the, if not the best singles or individual postseason run that I can remember. No. I mean, he'd have to be dog bad, and Dan, I don't think either one of us or anybody else sees that happening, do we?
No. But it almost feels like if he doesn't get 35, he somehow had a bad game now, which is pretty incredible that the over-under for LeBron in Game 7 was, I think, 37.5 points. And that's a pretty high bar. That's a high bar.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And look, could he run out of gas at this point? I guess. I mean, we use the term superhuman, though it doesn't apply literally. But I mean, if LeBron has games where he's good, look, he could easily, because he's done this now a couple of times, maybe in the first series as well. He could average a triple double and they could get swept.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, a triple double with 30, 12 and 10, and they get swept. And is there any criticism, any legitimate criticism to be leveled at LeBron? I mean, only if there's something outside the norm that characterizes his series. But in a normal basketball judging way, would I be critical of him if, first of all, I don't see them getting swept. Golden State is just not engaged long enough in any series to do that unless you have a situation like Kawhi Leonard getting hurt last year, and so therefore they swept that series. But the Warriors, that's the one thing that, while we're going to start talking about all-time greatness, Dan, we are, because that's what we all have to do, and it's going to be 3 out of 4, presumably. We're going to start talking about all-time teams. And the thing is, they're just not engaged long enough. They throw away a game.
Yeah.
I mean, the other night, it was interesting to see the Golden State brass, at the end of that game. And all of them were just like ashen because they couldn't believe, the way they were down 15 after being down 17 the previous first half. And so that's what, to me, will help with LeBron's own brilliance being the main thing, allow Cleveland a win or two. I just don't see a sweep.
If Cleveland was playing Houston, who would be favored?
I think Houston would have and should have been favored. That's a great question, Dan. But I don't. I feel like LeBron could literally have a chance. Some of that's based on Kevin Love's health, and I'm not one to put my entire belief in plus or minus, particularly since a lot of coaches I know say don't trust plus or minus unless you're considering the 5 players on the floor as a unit, then you can deal with plus minus. But I think he would have a better chance. The odds would be different. They would still, of course, I think, favor Houston, but not so dramatically. I don't think anybody would be talking a sweep. And if they won the other night in Game 7 but didn't have Chris Paul, then I think Cleveland could be favored.
We had this conversation yesterday, and that is if you were starting your team, and I said you got to pick Klay Thompson or Draymond Green, starting your team.
Wow.
Who you got?
Wow. I think Draymond Green, and Klay's a really good defender. It's not like, while Draymond Green can probably defend more positions, and people talk about it more. Has he been Defensive Player of the Year once in the league? I think he's been one time. He's been like in the top 2 or 3, like 3 times or more. Man, I think I would take Draymond Green because of the number of things he can do in today's NBA. But I think Klay Thompson is probably this is crazy to think this could be on if there's a first team all underrated. I think Klay Thompson could still be on that, despite being on deck for a third championship ring. I think that's, he's thought of too often as the fourth guy, and maybe he is. Maybe, he's going to put him behind Durant and Curry for sure. If you throw Draymond Green, you're talking about the fourth most important player on his team.
Would you rather?
Unthinkable, by the way.
When it's all said and done, you can have Durant's career or Steph Curry's career.
Well, if Steph winds up with one more ring, I'll take Steph's career.
But it's also his team. Durant came to his team, and
right.
Like it's still, we give Steph more credit because Steph helped build this. Durant came over, once you got the interior done to your Lamborghini, then he sat in the front seat here. And I think. So
it sounds like you're agreeing. It sounds like you're saying you'd go Steph.
I think Steph will get more credit for this dynasty if that's what they have,
right.
than Durant will. Durant will be probably recognized as a better player. Like if we do that, all-time list, I'm guessing Durant will be higher than Steph will.
I think I agree with you, but Dan, we could apply that. So we had that same conversation, and I think everybody would go, okay, wait a minute, that's different. If he'd only had the Miami championships, who would have had the better career? If he stayed in Miami and they won the same number of times, who would have had the better career, LeBron or Dwayne Wade?
Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne Wade won first, won without him.
Yeah, that LeBron joined.
Best player.
Yeah, LeBron doesn't even really get credit for the Miami titles, like a full title. It's like a partial playoff share. Whereas that's Dwayne Wade's team, and he came there. When you join a team that's already a good team, you're just not going to get credit. And I think people held that against LeBron. They don't give him credit as much as they hold it against him.
Yeah, and while I don't hold it against him, I don't. I still, when people start the conversation of Jordan and LeBron, one of the things I say is he and it's fine. I had zero problem with the decision. I thought it was one of the most overrated criticisms of all time. While I feel that way about the decision, I still think, okay, Jordan didn't have to go and hook up with someone who'd already won. That's a big part of that discussion for me, which I sort of hate because you have to wind up being critical of one or the other in the conversation. And it just seems sort of unsavory that, to me, two of the four best players in the history of the league, or five best, whatever, you have to criticize one of them, try to make that point, to make the case. But yeah, it winds up a Durant-Curry discussion. You wind up assessing what it's like to be at the ground floor of something as opposed to hopping on the elevator after a couple of floors up. Man,
we love these lists, though, don't we? We
do.
Careers,
we do.
And I have a moratorium on this Jordan versus LeBron. I said I can't do it anymore because I'm going to wait until LeBron is done, and then we, as an audience and listeners, then we can have a discussion here. But until then, it seems fruitless, and people holding on to Jordan for dear life. That we're not allowing LeBron to be in. He wasn't in the conversation a few years ago. Now it feels like you could have open dialogue and an educated, a grown-up conversation about it or debate about
Agreed.
it. But
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and look, we saw all those titles with Mike, and I got to be there with a great seat. But I just tell people, enjoy what you see while you can see it. And then we can wait to debate where somebody ranks all time. And until then, it feels like you're arguing politics. People are going to tell you the same thing from their side, and they're not changing. And you're going to tell me your side, and you're not changing as well. So why don't we just wait until it's all said and done?
Yeah, it's because we can't wait, man. We're not going to be allowed to wait.
Yeah.
We're going to be. We did this the other day as a topic on the show, and I just said to Frank Isola, who I think was in for Tony that day, I said, you know what, I'm putting this off. I mean, yeah, I'm a host of the show, and I'm putting it off because I don't want to have the discussion.
Yeah, I can't do it.
And it's worn me down. It's worn me out. And so, but you know what? We're gonna if LeBron wins a game, if he wins one of the first two games, that conversation is going to come up as much that night as any other sidebar.
Mike, have fun. We'll be watching for your reports on SportsCenter, and tell Mr. Tony we said hello.
Dan, will do. Thank you for having me, man.
All right, bud. That's Michael Wilbon.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.